What is going on YouTube? This is another episode of 717 Sports Chat Live, and as you know, I'm your host, Marcus James Witherspoon, coming at you again with some more sports context and more sports topics that I wanted to delve into and talk about. How's everybody doing in the 717, and how's everybody, if you're not from the 717, how's everybody doing today? Hit that comment section. I want to hear from you guys. I want to know your opinions on these topics that I'm going to talk about today. And as well as don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated, as well as hit that notification icon to get all the latest content updates. Just how's everybody's weekend been? My weekend wasn't too shabby. It was just a normal weekend. It was pretty cool. Just chilled around the house. Went to see some friends and stuff like that. Just another, normal weekend. Nothing really too special. Didn't really go out and do too much. All right, we're going to delve into today's topics. And the first topic we have here is some breaking news. It was reported about an hour and a half ago, best maybe even close to 2 hours. But the Houston Texans are expected to hire Lovie Smith as their new head coach. Now, why this is significant is for two reasons, in my opinion. Three reasons, actually. I'll give you three reasons. One, this is totally unexpected. I did not expect Lovie Smith to be in the running for this head coaching position. If I'm not mistaken, I do understand he was their defensive coordinator last year, etc. I did not know that he was being interviewed or being thought of becoming a head coach again. It's definitely surprising. I did not see this move coming from Houston. And why this is also significant is because, as you see in the caption, is a question: is this a ploy to keep Desean Watson in Houston as Houston quarterback? Now, the reason why I think that we need to discuss this and have an open conversation about this is because it's well documented. The issues that Desean Watson had with the organization in terms of front office moves, in terms of coaching, not being in the loop of who was going to, who they were going to trade, who they were going to acquire in terms of head coaching, all that stuff. He wanted to be more in the loop, being that he is the star quarterback in their franchise. Now, it's also significant because we all know the Brian Flores situation. And Brian Flores, the former Miami Dolphins head coach, has a lawsuit out against the NFL citing their hiring practices, racism in their hiring practices, etc., etc. That's why this is significant. Why Lovie Smith is being hired, because it's not. It's a great thing, obviously, but I want people to keep in mind that sometimes it's called a chain reaction, and to me, this was a chain reaction by the Houston Texans, and in all honesty, by the NFL. In my personal opinion, I think the NFL, I want to say pressured the Houston Texans to make this hire, but I don't want to sit there. I want to sit there and believe that maybe they were a little bit in their ear to send a message like, "Hey, there's no racism here. We have no organizations in this league has a problem hiring black NFL coaches, no matter how much the statistics show that that's not entirely true." Now, with that being said, it's interesting because I do feel like there's two ploys here by the Texans. One, the first ploy is, like I just noted, is to hire a black head coach to make it look good, to kind of save face for the league, make it seem like, at least we're an organization that doesn't have a problem hiring a black man as our head coach, etc. But to me, the more important ploy is keeping Desean Watson in Houston. Obviously, everybody knows Desean Watson, sexual harassment or legal case that's still going on. Everybody knows that's another thing that's well documented. I have been, on record saying, either on video or to just friends, and family, that I personally don't think he did it. I found it kind of ironic that once he requested a trade out of Houston, that all this speculation, about, sexual assault, this and that, the decency coming out after the fact that he wanted out of Houston. I personally thought that the organization had a hand in that. And I'm not sitting there backing down on that. But they know what they have in Desean Watson. They know they have a franchise quarterback that can lead them to a potential Super Bowl if they do it right and put the right pieces around him. Now, why Lovie Smith is a significant piece to that? Well, one, Lovie Smith is a former coach who's been in the Super Bowl. Him and Tony Dungy were the first African-American coaches to ever coach in the Super Bowl. So that's number one, that he has experience at winning. You know, he's a really good coach. And someday he's always been a good coordinator, and he's a really good head coach. I expect to see Lovie Smith in the Hall of Fame someday. I do. With that being said, why it's significant is because obviously, well, let's not, mince words here, is because he's a black head coach. You know what I mean? So maybe, just maybe, that might, I'm not sitting there saying that Desean had a problem with a white head coach. I'm not saying that at all. But maybe, just maybe, he'll feel like he can relate a little bit more to Lovey, and maybe Lovey will hear him out in terms of, what he wants in terms of talent put around him, etc. I do think this is a ploy for the Houston Texans to try to mend fences with Desean Watson and try to keep him in Houston. They've been adamant up until obviously the last few months of the season. They were pretty adamant that they were not going to move off of Desean Watson. So let's keep that in mind. For the longest time, no matter how much Desean barked about wanting to be traded, they stood firm. They did stand firm. And now, even though they loosened it up a little bit towards the end of the year, I do think that they're kind of retighten it back up, especially with this coaching hire. I think that given that Lovie Smith has a championship background and, has a good rapport with players will want to play for him. I think that it's not out of the question that we don't see Desean Watson and the Houston Texans mend fences. It's not impossible. You know what I mean? I thought for so long that there's no way he goes back to Houston. No way, no how. But now with Lovie Smith being hired, I tend to kind of lean off of that a little bit. I think there's a good chance that, I want to say a good 35% chance that Desean Watson will come to the table and hear what Lovey in the front office has to say, see if the vision matches, between them, and then maybe mend the fence. It's not impossible now that Lovie Smith is the head coach. And it's not just the fact, like I said, that he's a black head coach. It's more the fact to me that he's a championship winning, well, not championship winning because he didn't win the Super Bowl that year, but he's been to a championship. He knows what it's like to lead a team to success. So I think this is definitely one of the more interesting topics and more interesting stories that has come out in the NFL in the last couple of weeks. Like I said, there's a ploy. There's two ploys here, guys. To me, it's the whole Brian Flores situation. The Texans made a move. We're going to hire a black head coach to show that we're not an organization that won't give a black man his fair chance at head coaching a team. I do believe that. And I also believe this is a ploy to keep Desean Watson in Houston. It's going to be very interesting in the coming months to see how this pans out, to see if maybe Lovie Smith can, get through to Desean and say, hey, give me a chance here. I want you. You're my guy, no doubt about it. I want you to be my quarterback. I want to do big things here, and you're the main catalyst to that. If you can trust in me, we can go places. So I definitely think that Lovie Smith is the key to unlocking that forbidden door that is Desean Watson and the Houston Texans mending fences and coming back together, maybe, just maybe, especially for the sake of Houston fans, Desean Watson, especially if he takes care of his legal situations, we do got to get that taken care of. But if he gets past situations, I would rather prefer he, show his innocence than anything. You know what I mean? I really hope that he can prove his innocence in this situation. But it's going to be really interesting to see how Lovie Smith plays a part in Desean Watson possibly staying a Houston Texan. All right, we're going to move on to the next topic here. And this is another big topic. And I literally, just before I went on air, I literally just read this article about Kyler Murray, Arizona Cardinals quarterback, deciding to scrub all of his social media account. Well, not all, I want to say all of them, but his Twitter account, I'm supposed. His Twitter account has been scrubbed of anything Cardinals related. The only picture that is left is a picture from him in Oklahoma and the picture he took of him and Micah Parsons, of himself and Micah Parsons at the Pro Bowl, which took place yesterday. And the reason for this is because Kyler Murray wants to get paid. He just finished out his third year on his rookie deal. Most likely the Cardinals will pick up his fifth-year option, but obviously Kyler is not looking for that. Kyler is looking for obviously a big payday. And in my opinion, rightfully so. Each year you see progression, and the numbers don't lie. Now, granted, is he throwing 30 touchdowns to 10 interceptions? No, but he threw 24 touchdowns to 10 interceptions, and he's also rushed for multiple touchdowns throughout the course of his NFL career. Him and Cam Newton are the only players to put up such gaudy numbers in their first few seasons in terms of passing and rushing touchdowns alone. So, and the fact that he did take the Cardinals to the playoffs this year, to some degree, barring injury, each year has been an improvement for the Cardinals. If I'm not mistaken, the first year he went 8-8. Last year they went 9-7, and then this year obviously they went, I believe, 12-5 or something like that. They had a winning record. I'd have to pull up the standings. Not my team, and not my conference, so I tend to don't pay attention to, I obviously pay attention to the games and the players and stuff like that, but in terms of like statistics and stuff, like only when I like really want to get on a statistics kick do I start looking up numbers and stuff like that. And I did look up Kyler's numbers over the past few years, and since he's been in the league, and they merit enough for him to get a contract extension. And it's not like the Cardinals hasn't won out and put solid talent around him to where they don't have money to pay him. They have money to pay him. You know what I mean? So usually in these situations, teams like to sometimes wait to the fourth, pick up that fifth-year option so they don't have to pay the big contract in the third year. And plus, they want to see if, obviously, okay, they made the playoffs this year. Can you take us further into the playoffs? But, obviously, Kyler ain't playing no games, and he's not about it. So, this is definitely, in terms of the quarterback market, this is going to probably be the most sought after. Him, Desean Watson, and Russell Wilson. This will probably be the most sought after quarterback free agency class, trade class in a while. Like, it's crazy what's going on right now. That's insane. That's 3 franchise quarterbacks that if Kyler decides to hold out on the Cardinals and not play, I mean, he's already scrubbed the Cardinals off of his Twitter account. When he took the picture of Micah Parsons, it's worth to note that he did not put the Cardinals helmet forward. So he basically had the Cardinals emblem hidden so you wouldn't see the team logo. Man, it's not looking good if you're the Arizona Cardinals, especially if you're Cliff Kingsbury. Because Cliff Kingsbury's whole stick with getting that head coaching position was, I want Kyler Murray to be my quarterback because he's the perfect fit for my air raid offense. So, if I'm Cliff Kingsbury, I'm heading up to the front office and I'm like, just pay the man. You know what I mean? Because without that guy, without that guy, it's pretty evident that team is not really that great. They're not. And he's a young he's not even up and coming. He's a young, special talent in this league, and you don't let guys like that just walk out the door just because you want to bleed, every little bit out of him until you decide, hey, we don't want to pay you. No, no. The production has been there. The improvement each season in the record has been there. Give the man his money. Simple and plain. That's very interesting, though. It's going to be interesting to see how this particular topic plays out. Man, wow. This right here, the Kyler Murray situation, could change the entire landscape of NFL free agency, trading, etc., etc. Like, if him and the Cardinals don't mend fences, man, like I said, Desean Watson, Russell Wilson, Kyler Murray, Aaron Rodgers, if he decides not to retire, man, this is going to get interesting, guys, in the next couple months. All right, we're going to move on to the next topic. I'm not going to spend too much time on this one or whatever. I talked about it last week, and I had thought, because as obviously it was being reported, that Rich Bisaccia, my former interim coach for the Las Vegas Raiders, it was reported that Rich Bisaccia was hired by the Chicago Bears to be their special teams coordinator. But now we find that out that's not true. He instead had been hired by their division rival, the Green Bay Packers, as their special teams coordinator. And I will touch on it real quick. I do think this is a very good move for the Packers. Obviously, we do know the big reason why the Packers lost in that playoff game against the 49ers was because their special teams failed them miserably. And it wasn't just in that game. All year, the Packers were second worst in the league at number 31 in terms of special teams ranking. Rich Bisaccia has been one of the best special teams coaches in football for the last 19 years. I think he's been in the NFL. So, I mean, I really like this move for the Packers, but it's not going to fix their Aaron Rodgers situation. This move doesn't ensure that Aaron Rodgers is going to stay in Green Bay. But in terms of fixing that terrible special teams, I really like the move. And once again, I said it last week when I heard he got hired by the Bears, and I'll say it now that he's been officially hired by the Green Bay Packers. Shout out to Coach Rich Bisaccia. I will always be grateful for the job he did with my Las Vegas Raiders. I personally believed he deserved a head coaching position, and I believe that in the future, if he so chooses to, if there's a position up there if he's up for the position, I would like to see him get a chance to be a head coach in this league. I think he's a really good football mind, and I think that he is a proven leader of men, especially given the level of difficulty that he had to take over midseason in Las Vegas, and given the fact that he did guide them to their first postseason berth since 2016. All right, guys, we're going to get off NFL news here. We're going to go on to NBA news. The Indiana Pacers have traded swing guard / forward, shooting guard / small forward, Caris Levert to the Cleveland Cavaliers for a few picks, etc. Now, why this is a really solid move to the Cavaliers, well, I should say for the Cavaliers, is because surprisingly enough, the Cleveland Cavaliers are 33-21. They're one of the most surprising teams throughout basketball right now. One of the better stories in all basketball right now. Nobody expected the Cavaliers to be even close to being this well improved. And keep in mind, they are doing this without star guard Colin Sexton, which is why this trade was made in terms of them needing a guy who can create his own shot and score and get to the basket and score. They already have Darius Garland. I mean, he's been out in the last couple games with an injury and stuff, but you got Darius Garland. You got Barrett Allen, who was a teammate of Caris Levert and with the Brooklyn Nets. They were a part of that big trade for James Harden last year. So he reunites with his teammate from Brooklyn and Jarrett Allen. He's going to a team that has one of the best front courts in basketball with with rising power forward star Evan Mobley and center Jarrett Allen. As I already stated, guard Darius Garland. This team is built. They have a really solid foundation of young talent, and this just even adds to it because Caris is only 26, 27 years old. So I think he fits in perfectly. And what his skill set brings fits in perfectly what the Cavaliers need right now, which is why they're missing Colin Sexton. Everybody knows Colin Sexton can obviously shoot the three ball, etc. But what Colin Sexton is also really good at is getting into the lane and getting its points in the paint. The Cavaliers are ranked 29th in the league right now in terms of shooting, in terms of guards and shooting guards getting into the paint and scoring points in the paint and creating their own shot. Caris Levert is a top 10 shooting guard in terms of getting to the paint, and most of his points have come from the paint. So this is a perfect fit for the Cleveland Cavaliers, the surprising Cleveland Cavaliers. I love this move. I think it's a great move. The age, the skill, everything matches up perfectly. Now you have your guy who, and one thing he does do better than Colin Sexton is facilitate. He's a far better facilitator than Colin Sexton. So he also gives you that element to his game that can summon a load off Darius Garland in certain situations. So I really like this move for Caris Levert and the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now, excuse me, do I see them as a team that can beat like a Milwaukee Bucks or a Brooklyn Nets? No, I still think they're a little young for that, but they can definitely win a first-round playoff series depending on who they face, or at least give their competition, some stiff competition, to say the least. All right, guys, we're going to move on to the next topic in NBA news, and that is Russell Westbrook. Oh, man, Russ. Over the weekend, when the Lakers faced off against the New York Knicks and defeated the New York Knicks, that game went to overtime. Russell Westbrook was benched in overtime. Is this a sign that the Lakers will move Russ at whatever the cost, or have him continue off the bench in a six-man role? Now, it's worth to note that after the fact, Russ, when asked about it, said that basically he was disappointed, but at the end of the day, what he cares about is that they won the game. He cares about winning. Now, if I'm the Lakers, I'm kind of using that on Russ. Oh, yeah, you care about winning? Good. We want you to come off the bench. We want you to lead the bench. Because the point of the matter is, everybody knows that LeBron James is a far better point guard in terms of decision-making and facilitating than Russell Westbrook. That's just a known fact. He runs the offense better. And Russ, unfortunately, he turns the ball over too much. His shooting, even though it's gotten better over the last month, it still leaves much to be desired. And his plus minus when he's playing with AD and LeBron on the court, just at least, at the point position, just isn't working out for him. Do I think the Lakers will move him? No, I don't think they can. They don't have the assets to move him. Now, if they're willing to move him for basically nothing, then okay, maybe. But I just don't see the Lakers not getting anything of value for a guy like Russell Westbrook. You just don't trade him for nothing. But what I do see happening is them saying, okay, Russ, you said you care about winning, that you're disappointed that, obviously we benched you, whatever, but you said you care about winning first and foremost. We feel that the best position that puts us in for victory is you coming off the bench and leading the bench and leading the second team. That's how we feel. And in all honesty, with all due respect, Russell Westbrook put this on himself with his play. He did. And I personally think the Lakers would be better off if they put him at the six-man role. I do. I really, really do. I think they would be a greater threat. Because now you have a legitimate guy, because that's the biggest thing, to have no bench, really. So if you put Russ on the bench, you have just enough with AD and LeBron on the court. And they showed that when they had their championship-winning roster. You have just enough with LeBron on the court and AD if healthy. Malik Monk has come into his own at shooting guard. Like, maybe if you make a move and go grab another piece, something. But me personally, in my opinion, I do think the Lakers are better suited at putting Russell Westbrook at the six-man position. I just do. And putting LeBron James back at the point guard position and having him run the offense. In my opinion, that gives the Lakers a greater chance at success. That's just my opinion, though. It's going to be interesting to see what they do moving forward. Here, Don Boy in the back, barking. Here's Mom coming in. All right, we're going to move on. Obviously, the next topic. Steve Nash says James Harden wants to be in Brooklyn long term. No trade is imminent. My take. All right, guys. About a month ago, a report came out that Daryl Morey, my Philadelphia 76ers front office executive, had reached out to Brooklyn Nets front office executive general manager Sean Marks about a potential trade for James Harden. And we all know who the Sixers are trying to get rid of in order to make that trade happen. Ben Simmons. And Sean Marks flat out said no, not happening. And now Steve Nash says Harden wants to be in Brooklyn long term, no trade imminent. Okay. That's what Steve Nash and Sean Marks are saying no. But this is where I tend to concur. Not concur. This is where I tend to disagree with this whole notion. James Harden is really good friends with Daryl Morey, even still to this day, even though, everybody knows, well documented from their time in Houston. Daryl Morey, James Harden is Daryl Morey's guy. He would flip the sun, the stars, and the moon for James Harden. Everybody knows that. Daryl Morey doesn't make that phone call if James Harden isn't saying anything to him. He doesn't. That's point blank what it is. In my opinion, James Harden, I don't want to sit there and say he flat out told Daryl Morey, oh, I want out of Brooklyn. You know what I mean? I don't want to be here. I don't think he flat out told him that. I just think he kind of told Daryl, like, hey, I don't know if this is going to work out like I had hoped. Keep me in the back of your mind, type deal. One of those things. And obviously, Daryl Morey, obviously doing what Daryl Morey does, quick on the job, made the call, and obviously got rejected. Now, I do think that obviously James Harden won't be traded. However, I do think at the end of the season he will test free agency. I do not think that James Harden will come back to Brooklyn long term. I don't. And I've said it before in a previous episode, and I'll say it again. The injuries between him, KD, and Kyrie, and then Kyrie, for personal, beliefs, reasons, what have you, missing time. These guys have only been on the court. The big three has only been on the court together, if I'm not mistaken, 36 games within 2 years. Well, within at least a year and a half. Almost 2 full seasons. 36 games. It's not even half a season, you guys. And James Harden knows the window is closing. He's only getting older. He's not getting any younger. And I think he's questioning I think he's questioning his move to Brooklyn as a mistake because given the injuries to KD and given, like I said, Kyrie always being nicked up, Kyrie over his personal beliefs, not wanting to play, whatever, what have you. I just think the uncertainty of being able to play with those two consistently, game in and game out, I think it's starting to weigh on him, and I think it's starting to give him a broader perspective of, do I want to be in Brooklyn or do I not want to be in Brooklyn? That's what I'll say. I believe that I think he's keeping his options open. I don't think it's at seal and shut, oh, I'm staying in Brooklyn, as many think. I don't. I do think at the end of the season, do I think he's going to get traded? No. The Nets, they invested too much into him to trade him. However, especially if they don't win a championship this year, I do see James Harden potentially testing free agency and going elsewhere and not returning to Brooklyn. But that's my take on the matter of James Harden and what Steve Nash has to say in terms of Brooklyn trading him. Again, I don't think the Nets will trade him. I think they would be morons to trade him. You know what I mean? Unless you can get offensively, you're not going to get what you get out of Harden, out of Ben Simmons, but you get the equivalent, you get lockdown defense. You know what I mean? So, but once again, I do not think a trade will happen. I do not see Brooklyn trading James Harden off anywhere. If anything, if James Harden will not be a Brooklyn Net, it will come in free agency next year. All right, guys, we're going to move on to the last topic of the stream. And the other night after it happened, I went live and wanted to do my post-fight recap of Mario Barrios versus Keith Thurman fight. Everybody knows it was Keith Thurman's comeback fight after a 2.5-year layoff, coming off his first loss to Hall of Famer Manny Pacquiao. And I went live, and everything was going smoothly for a little bit, and then we hit a lag, and the internet connection for some reason was just being funky, etc. But obviously, everything's working fantastic right now. So I wanted to get this in. I wanted to talk about this. You know what I mean? I didn't get to finish what I was saying the other day. So we're going to just do a quick recap of Keith Thurman versus Mario Barrios. So, again, Keith Thurman ended his 2.5-year layoff with a wide decision victory over Mario Barrios, re-cementing his place as one of the top welterweights in the division and in the world. I said it the other night before, the stream started to act funky with me. Thurman looked fantastic. Physically, I thought this is the best shape I've ever seen him come in. I thought he looked strong. He looked physical. He looked mean. He didn't look like he was coming to play. And most important, he was sharp. After he got his rhythm, he was very accurate and precise. Now, there were a couple moments where he was obviously jumping in and landing some left hooks on Barrios. And obviously, you don't ever want to really jump in to have to punch, but Barrios is kind of a longer fighter, and obviously it worked to Thurman's advantage in that case. Do I think against a guy like Errol Spence or Terrence Crawford that will work? Obviously not. I don't think so, but it worked for him in this fight. But in the first couple rounds, he was kind of jumping in with his punches. You saw the rust. You know what I mean? But once he was able to get in his rhythm and really sit down on his punches and find his knock off that rust and find his rhythm and find his timing, he just couldn't miss really off. He just couldn't miss. If you see Barrios' nose at the end of the fight, man, that was like 3 noses packed into one. He shattered Barrios' nose. That thing swelled up. It was like a big hematoma that you see on the side of somebody's head after banging their head so much on the nose. Like it was so many clean shots that Barrios took on that nose. I will say this. Barrios, it's not like Barrios wasn't like competitive. He tried, but it's something that I said leading up when I did my preview to this fight was coming up from 140 pounds. I didn't know how strong Barrios would be in terms of his power, if his power would do anything to deter Keith Thurman. And I also said, I don't know if Keith Thurman's power will play a difference into Mario Barrios being successful in this fight, because I said, obviously, Thurman is the bigger fighter. He's been at welterweight his whole career. Mario Barrios was coming up from junior welterweight. So the size discrepancy was definitely there. And it was. Thurman, it was all about the power, you guys. Thurman's power just was better than Barrios's. Thurman's power kept Barrios honest and at bay from any consistent attack. And Barrios' power did nothing to keep Thurman off of him. Nothing at all. Except there was one moment in the fight where Thurman took his mouthpiece out and dropped it into his glove and started moving around the ring. Barrios landed a body shot that did kind of bewilder Thurman, but he was able to weather the storm and not take any more damage. But that is well noted that Keith Thurman has always had an issue with taking body shots. He hasn't went down from a body shot yet, but he has a sweet spot in his body that if somebody drums consistently, I think they can get to him. You know, but overall, Keith Thurman looked really sharp. He's 33 years old now, but he doesn't look like he's old. He doesn't look slow. Doesn't look like he's lost anything, any reflexes. He looked really, really good on Saturday night. Mario Barrios, I'm not going to knock on him for this fight. This was easily the toughest fight, even tougher than Gervonta Davis. This was the toughest matchup of his career, and he took the fight, knowing the risk, and he put in an okay performance, but I think Mario Barrios needs to fill into his welterweight form before he becomes a legitimate player in that division. I feel like he needs to have a couple more fights at welterweight, hone his body, build his body into being at that weight in order to be a real threat to anybody, because he just didn't have the power. He didn't have the power that really would discourage a strong welterweight like a Keith Thurman, like a Errol Spence, like a Terrence Crawford. He just didn't have it this past Saturday night. But I do think with a couple more fights at welterweight, Mario Barrios is still young. With a few more fights, he's only 26 years old. He's got time. He's not even hitting his physical prime yet. With a few more fights and a little bit more weights and power increase, Barrios can be a threat at welterweight if he does it right. I will say that. But Thurman, like I said, he looked fantastic in my opinion. Like he was precise once he got his rhythm. His timing was down right. Errol Spence is tied up with your Danish Ugis. Bud Crawford, Keith Thurman, anyone? I'd be down for that fight all day, every day. Let's make it happen. Do I think it's going to happen? No. I think Bud Crawford is waiting for the winner out of Ugis and Spence, preferably Spence. We all know that. He's waiting for that fight. And as I said in a previous video, if Spence wins that fight, then there's no excuse why you can't or won't fight Bud Crawford, because he has the other belt. And if you want to be undisputed like you claim, you have to fight him. I will say this. Keep Thurman in the back of your mind as a possible opponent if Errol Spence beats your Danish Ugis, right? And still tries to dodge the Terrence Crawford fight. I can see him being like, I want to fight Keith Thurman, because he's been wanting to fight for the last few years. I can see him using Keith Thurman, and I hate to say this about my guy, because I love Errol Spence, but I'm sorry, he's shown me that he doesn't. His body language shows me he doesn't really want to fight Terrence Crawford. So, I mean, in certain instances, I also have stated that I think he's fighting your Danish Ugis so he can get this other belt, so that he can set up the undisputed world title fight with Terrence Crawford. I do think that's in his card, but it's not blind to see that he has kind of been somewhat avoiding Terrence Crawford. And it would not surprise me. It would not surprise me by any stretch of the imagination if Errol Spence wins his fight against your Danish Ugis, he says, oh, I want to fight Keith Thurman next. It would not surprise me. It would not surprise me at all. I'm hoping that doesn't happen, because if Spence does win, I want to see him fight Bud Crawford for the undisputed welterweight championship of the world. And then maybe Keith Thurman can fight a Jerron Boots Ennis for a title eliminator. Beautiful. That's matchmaking, you guys. That's how you matchmake in terms of boxing. That's how you set shit up. So, hopefully that's how things play out. It remains to be seen. But once again, Keith Thurman defeats Mario Barrios by a wide decision, ending his 2.5-year layoff, getting his name back into the welterweight conversation. It was a really good performance. I was really impressed, especially, again, like I said, physically, he looks really, really strong. He was the most cut I've ever seen him in his whole career. Usually you've seen Keith Thurman kind of have like a soft stomach. Not this time. He was hitting. He had said that he was doing 800 curls a day. Gnarly. And it showed. He looked fantastic. He looked physically in the best shape of his entire career. And he's still a threat for anybody in the welterweight division, whether you're Terrence Bud Crawford or Errol the True Spence. But all right, guys, I'm going to end this stream right here. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated, as well as hit that notification icon to get all the latest content updates. This is 717 Sports Chat Live. I'm your host, Marcus James Witherspoon. I'm out for the night, guys. Everybody stay blessed and be safe, and I'll catch you the next time.